Okay, welcome, Brett. Thank you very much. I know you've turned down offers on all the main broadcasters to talk to us, and these are very tragic circumstances from last night's attack. The third in a series, and Theresa May's talking about getting a lot tougher on terrorism. What does this all add up to in practical terms for the UK?
Well, getting tougher is going to be very, very difficult for her. If she means bringing back the control orders that we did see in place 5 years ago, that may or may not work. What that might mean is getting tougher equals the terrorists having a reason to attack more frequently and in bigger numbers. So she has to be really careful about what getting tougher means. Is getting tougher means longer sentences once it has gone through the court of law, or is it getting tougher through control orders, having only reasonable grounds to believe that an offence is about to take place? So she has to be very careful, and she has to spell it out.
There's been a comment about working with the support of the big global social media companies and getting them to take more responsibility. At the same time, there's been quite a debate with people like Tim Berners-Lee saying that privacy is actually a major plus, that actually passing the keys to encryption across to law enforcement could be negative. What's the right balance? How can we address this? Because I know this is a major tool, isn't it, for terrorism at the moment to propagate their ideology.
It's huge, and you know, the police service and the security services are very used to keeping secrets, and I think that the actual it's in the detail. The actual response is in the detail. It's making sure that there are processes and procedures in place with law enforcement and security services to make sure that when they are given encryption keys, when they are given the access to the back door, that those keys and that ability is kept very, very tight. And the security services and the law enforcement agencies are incredibly accountable anyway, not only to the government, but to the public themselves. So it could be that accountability extends to the information and internet providers themselves. But there clearly has to be a shift, and there has to be an ability for those encryption keys to be handed over. Having said that, Tim Berners-Lee is quite right. We've got something just as valuable, which is the ability to maintain our right to privacy, but there has to be something that changes, and I think there needs to be that discussion not only with the providers and the government, but also general businesses, because we are also our users.
And also, Theresa's talked about tougher sentencing. Does that really matter with the mindset of these terrorists who are prepared to blow themselves up? I hear that one of the terrorists that died last night or was shot is a family man. You know, that must take an awfully warped sense of values. So does a few extra years on your jail sentence really count for anything?
I would say no. And you see, I suppose we're talking about an ideology. Unless you are in the minds of the terrorists, none of us who are not terrorists could ever hope to understand. And what we'll probably see with the imprisonment and internment of terrorists, what we're going to be seeing is perhaps the playing out of something that we saw in Irish Republican terrorism, where they become martyrs, where they become have a strength that they don't have at the moment. At the moment, they're being put into prison. There isn't the longer sentences, but as soon as the longer sentences come about, we're probably talking about martyrdom. We're talking about something stronger, something that will make young people thinking about becoming terrorists, helping them move towards that end. And that's possibly not going to be useful, and it needs greater thinking and greater communication between the agencies.
Thanks, Brett. The argument that the Islamicists have is that they're conducting a war to purify the world, and after the Manchester attacks, they accused the innocent victims of being crusaders who were indulging in shameful behavior. Now, the Salafist ideology that is twisted to the ends of these terrorists is also shared by Saudi Arabia, where the values system over there is not that dissimilar. They have beheadings. There's a huge outcry over the treatment of women and their rights. So we're taking on the whole, and Theresa talks about this putting forward of British values. We're taking on board a big chunk of the world of Islam, are we? Is it mission impossible?
It's about us being able to have a narrative which explains British society, British values, in terms that the clear-thinking young people, middle-aged people of whatever religion is engaging with us can understand. And yes, there is a bit of duplicity. We're doing business with Saudi Arabia. But you know what I like to think about and focus on as a businessman is that let's leave the politics up to the politicians. Let's leave that kind of argument which must be had around human rights to the politicians. I'm in the business of saving lives, and I'm in the business of saving lives whether they live in Saudi Arabia, Iran, Afghanistan, Britain, America, Europe, Africa, etc. I'm focusing on the fact that there are people in all of those countries, whether it be the Middle East or the West or everywhere in between, that need our help. People who are not engaged in terrorism, the vast majority, the people who are don't have an ideology that focuses on killing men, women and children and that kind of targeting innocence. I am very much focused on helping people to stay alive, and when they stay alive, to actually, for us to be able to share our ideals and ideologies and ethics with them.
Okay, thanks, Brett. Talking about the saving of life, last night we saw a lot of heroism, which again was praised by the Prime Minister. What's your advice to the general public? Because there were clearly some people who helped delay and direct the police, or delay the terrorists and direct the police. But should they be doing that sort of heroic work, or leaving it to the police?
No, I think this is one of the bedrocks of British society. We respond well in a crisis. We need those people. And in fact, law enforcement and other emergency services are termed the first responders. They're probably not. The first responders are the men and women at the scene, stemming blood flows, gaining witness evidence ready to pass on to the emergency service. No, there's probably the heroics that we saw are very much needed until emergency services get there. And of course, what they then must do is step back. I think that's to be encouraged. I think we're going to need that kind of not just goodwill, but bravery in the future. And long may it happen.
Brett, that's really good analysis. I think very reassuring in many respects. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you, John.